Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Beth Foss and I'm the President and Chief Magic Officer of My Travel Elf in Naples, Florida. And today I am here to talk to you about river cruising, something that's been near and dear to my heart for the last 30 some years. So I'm just over the moon happy and excited that finally the rest of the world has caught on to what a fantastic vacation river cruising really is. I am so sorry that you are muted because it does help keep down the background noise. But if you have any questions at all, please go ahead and type them in at the side of your screen and we'll take as many of those questions as we can get to at the end of the presentation. If I don't get to your question, I will definitely send you an email tomorrow and get you that information. This is a brand new piece of software, so fingers crossed that I have it figured out. But without further ado, let's talk river cruising. Today we're going to start with what is river cruising. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Then we'll talk a little bit about where you can go with river cruises, what part of the world you can cover, and also how river cruising is different from ocean cruising. Many of you, probably most of you, have done one or more ocean cruises in the past, and there are a lot of similarities, but there are also a whole bunch of pretty major differences. And then we'll move on to who the biggest players are in the river cruise industry right now. Some of them you've heard of, probably most of them you haven't heard of. And we want to talk at least a little bit about how much river cruises cost. There are obviously a lot of factors that go into the price of a river cruise. It can vary fairly dramatically, but I want to give you at least some idea of what you're talking about financially, as well as what that price includes, because there are some inclusions in most cases that are above and beyond what you would get from an ocean cruise. And then we'll talk at least a little bit about the many promotions and discounts that the river cruise companies offer, as well as a special promotion that My Travel Elf is offering just to those of you who are listening to our presentation and end up booking your next river cruise by the end of this month. And then I want to make sure to tell you, of course, how to schedule a time to talk about river cruising with your My Travel Elf agent. If you have one, if you don't, we will set you up with one, or I will talk with you. Then we're going to have a little time toward the end there, and I will take as many questions as I possibly can. I'm really trying hard to squeeze this into a 30-minute time period because I know that you're all really busy. If you have a question, please type it in at the side of your screen, and we will take those at the end. If I can't get to your question, I will absolutely make sure I send you an email with the answer to it. And last but certainly not least, please make sure you stay till the very end because we have two awesome prizes, one donated by Viking River Cruises and the other one from Alma Waterways, just for those of you who are attending this live presentation. And so yeah, we'll do that right at the end. What is river cruising exactly? Well, it's a really hot thing in the travel industry for Americans right now, but it's certainly not a new concept with respect to travel in general. I actually got my own start in the travel industry more than 30 years ago, working for a river cruise company. That's me, second from the right, having dinner with some of my fellow crew members. And we were working aboard this lovely vessel, the Mississippi Queen, doing the American waterways. But even 30 years ago, river cruising had been established for well over a century as a really kind of popular and posh way to vacation. But really what made all the difference in the world was when this guy, a Norwegian man named Torstein Hagen, started advertising his river cruise company in the US on PBS. Anybody have a guess on what that company was, or maybe the TV show? Guest Viking River Cruises. Yep, that was his company, is his company. And that little show he decided to advertise on, none other than Downton Abbey. So overnight, half of North America started to talk about river cruising. Just how popular is it? Well, I recently saw this kind of interesting statistic based on 2017 numbers. The growth rate of the cruise industry as a whole broken down then into segments. Ocean cruising is growing at 4 to 5% annually, which is a number that everybody's really pretty happy with. By comparison, river cruising is up a whopping 15 to 16%, which is absolutely mind-boggling. So where is it that everybody's going exactly? Well, as you can see from this map, pretty much anywhere you want to go. North America, as I previously mentioned, and then also South America. So if the Amazon is on your list of things to do, you can cruise it. If you want to try out a cruise down the Nile, not a problem. Southeast Asia and China and Russia are huge right now. Those, for the most part, are people who started off in Europe. And as you can see from this map, Europe is covered extensively by navigable rivers, and there are river cruises that cover almost all of them. The vast majority of people will start off doing a Danube river cruise or a Rhine river cruise, and most of the time, whichever one they didn't do, then they'll do the other one. And once they knock those two out, then they start to expand a little, and that's when they will typically go either really exotic and do those China, Russia, Southeast Asia, or maybe stick a little closer to familiarity before branching out and do the beautiful Douro River in Portugal. Now it's time to get into the real meat of this subject. How does river cruising differ from ocean cruising? I love this quote. Remember this guy, Torstein Hagen from Viking River Cruise, who says that ocean cruising is a drinking man's cruise and river cruising is a thinking man's cruise. Obviously, there is plenty of drinking going on river cruises, and likewise, at least I would like to think there's some thinking going on with ocean cruises, particularly the higher end and smaller ships that tend to get into some of the more exotic ports like the Galapagos or Southeast Asia or along the Baltic. So it's not all rum punch and other umbrella drinks going on. There are actually some fairly cerebral ocean cruises out there, but I think what he's referring to is the fact that river cruising really gets you into the heart of a country. You are on those inland waterways that no big ocean cruise vessel is ever going to be able to take you down. There's no doubt that size is really the biggest differentiator between ocean cruising and river cruising. And so I wanted to make a slide for you that really kind of illustrated that point and drives it home for you visually. In that first picture, you see the very small Pacific Princess sitting in front of a medium-sized Grand Princess. Now, Pacific Princess is far from being the very smallest ocean cruise vessel out there, but she's certainly one of the smaller ones, and you can really see visually the size difference there. And then on the right side, we've got the Oasis of the Seas, which is a member of the largest class of ocean cruise-going passenger vessels, and it's significantly larger. Gross tonnage-wise, it is more than double the Grand Princess. And when you look at the number of passengers, more than double the number of passengers of an average medium-sized vessel as well. But now look again at those statistics for the little Pacific Princess. 594 feet long, a little over 30,000 gross tons, and 688 passengers, double occupancy. Compare that to this. This is the Viking Heimdall, and it's one of Viking River Cruises' longships at 443 feet long and just 5,000 gross tons. This one isn't particularly light. It's pretty average and obviously significantly smaller from a pure weight standpoint, if nothing else, and carries only 190 passengers. Interestingly, these Viking longships at 190 passengers carry kind of at the high end of the spectrum because you're going to see other vessels that are also 443 feet long carrying more in that 130 to 150 passenger range. 170 is pretty common. And here's a little interesting tidbit for you. They're called Viking longships as a kind of a nod to the Viking heritage because the Vikings did call their boats, or at least certain ones, longships. And so these are called longships for that reason, not because they're longer than everybody else's ships. The fact of the matter is you've got to get your vessel into the locks on the rivers, particularly the upper Danube and on the Rhine, and 443 feet is as long as they can be or they won't fit. So everybody who is building vessels for the European waterways right now, they're all pretty much coming in at the same length and the same width. What differs is how they utilize that space, the kind of service they offer, and so forth. Now this is a picture of the Viking longship that we took last month on our Rhine River cruise. And if you look really closely on that top deck of cabins, you can see that some of the ones in the middle are kind of sunken in. Those are the ones with the traditional balconies. And then you've got some to either side of that that have French balconies, as well as the entire lower deck there of cabins, which also have French balconies. And then you see all those teensy weensy little windows at the very, very bottom, like at the water line. That's what we call swan view cabins. And the reason we call them that is because if a swan were to happen to float by on the river, as actually happens sometimes, you would pretty much be able to look out your window and look eye to eye with that swan, assuming, of course, that you can see out the window. I'm so short that I can't even see standing on my toes. I actually have to stand on a chair to look out the windows. So in this picture on the right, that cabin is about 2/3 below the actual water level. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about those balconies while we're on the subject. On the top left there, you've got a traditional balcony cabin. You can see that basically the cabin itself looks just like an ocean cruise cabin. They're really small, but they're functional. Lots of good little nooks and crannies to stash all your stuff. Plenty of room, really. And they're very, very comfortable. I have to say, the river cruise beds, oh my gosh, they spare no expense on those mattresses. Really, really nice. Anyway, that's a traditional balcony where you slide the door over and there are a couple chairs out there. And then underneath that is a close-up of the French balcony, which has that same sliding door, but then you just have the rail, so there's no place to actually step out onto an open deck area. The ships that have that, those cruise lines, really talk those up because you're not losing any of your cabin space to outside balcony deck space. If you want to keep the door closed, then it's usable cabin space. And if you open it up, you get all the sunshine and the fresh air without giving up any of that square footage. And then you have what I call the best of both worlds, and that's a twin balcony or a double balcony, which is a small French balcony. In this case, it's the one on the right, and then a small traditional balcony on the left. The traditional balcony is definitely tiny. There's enough room for 2 chairs and a little table out there, but you can face the water and sit out there comfortably. And then on the right side in this picture, it's got just 1 chair. Our cabin actually had 2 chairs and a little table, which is really cozy. We moved our other chair out of the way, but there are definitely times when one works better for you than the other. So it is possible to have both. And then on the right here, you can see what a typical cabin looks like. This is actually, I'm going to say, maybe a hair larger than standard. So not the standard balcony cabin, but the slightly larger one. And then on the left side, you can see what the standard bathroom would look like. Now, when I say these bathrooms are tiny, they are really tiny. Even on an ocean cruise vessel, the smallest bathrooms might have a little more square footage than these have. I don't know. But the fixtures and everything are really, really nice. You see lots of marbles and granites, and they're absolutely beautiful. The water pressure is good. And again, it's really functional use of a small space. So these are very comfortable cabins, and they do have suites on most of these vessels. So if you've got a wallet that's a little bit heavier and you can afford to splurge on those suites, it's really nice because you do get the extra square footage, and then you also get the bigger balconies, which is always nice. The next thing I want to talk about is dining, because I think most people will say that the dining, to at least some extent, really has a big overall effect on how they feel about the cruise experience in general. With river cruising, you definitely have fewer options than you have with ocean cruising, but you don't have no options. There are some choices here. The first one would be that you can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the main dining room. In these pictures, they're representative of different ships from 3 different lines. And while you can see that they're all very different in style and overall theming, what they all have in common is, first of all, really great use of big windows. So even while you're dining, you never forget where you are. You've always got these amazing views. The second thing is that it's sort of a casual elegance. I think when people ask me what do people wear on river cruises, it's such a hard question to answer, because when you see these dining rooms, there really is kind of an elegance to it, and yet the overall feel is that of sort of resort casual. I don't think you'd want to wear your shorts to dinner for sure, but shorts would be fine for breakfast or lunch. Um, I think for dinner, khakis and a collared shirt for men, if that gives you some idea. So casual elegance is sort of the theme here. And they don't tell you what time you need to eat. They tell you what time a meal is served, from maybe 6:30 to 9:30 for dinner, for example. So you show up anytime during that window of time, and you can sit at any open table in the room that you want to. You can dine with anyone that you want to. So it's really kind of nice to have that flexibility. Certainly, there are times when you don't feel like going to the main dining room. You do want to wear your shorts for dinner. So most of these vessels have a second option, and that's a more casual cafe type thing. And again, I've chosen photos that are representative of 3 different cruise lines. And one of the ones that I really want to point out is Viking's Aqua V Terrace in that upper right corner. That is so nice because the buffet is literally outside, and you've got all this outdoor seating, and certainly you can take your food inside too if you want to. Down below that, we've got Ama Waterways lounge lunch option. It's kind of a miniature version of what they offer on the lunch buffet downstairs. And then if you want to eat that outside, you can go up to the top deck, or you can stay right in the inside lounge area. I mentioned that lunch is buffet style. That's true, again, of most of these cruise lines, because people, if they come back to the boat for lunch at all, they usually are just coming back for a short period of time and then they're heading back into town. Or maybe the boat is going to move to a different port in the afternoon, so the passengers tend to want to grab a quick lunch and then go sit outside, go sit on their balcony and watch the world go by. So you do usually have that lunch buffet option, but then there's also a menu. So if you want to order something from the menu, you can. If you want to get a burger from the menu and then also eat off the buffet, that's okay too. It's whatever makes you happy. And then we've got some representative pictures of lounges here, again from 3 different cruise lines. They are all different and yet somehow kind of all the same. Lots of windows so you can see out during the day, lots of seating. The lounge always has a bar and most of the time has some kind of piano or keyboard there. And that's because in the evenings, you are not going to get those great big Broadway shows like you get on an ocean cruise. You're going to get the resident entertainer coming in who's going to play softly in the background. Then, at least some evenings, they try to bring in local entertainment. So it might be some folk dancers or folk singers or maybe some kind of local historian, and they might do a presentation for 45 minutes or an hour, something like that. So it's not a big over-the-top entertainment kind of thing. When you take a river cruise, it's all about being immersed in the destination. So you'll find that people tend to stay up until maybe 10 o'clock, 10:30, and by 11 o'clock, I'd say probably 3/4 of the passengers are asleep. Next, I want to talk a little bit about demographics because we all know that ocean cruising historically has catered to a lot of families. On any given Norwegian or Carnival or Royal Caribbean cruise, you're going to see everybody from the tiny little kids through the teens and the 20 and 30 somethings, the moms and dads, all the way up to grandma and grandpa. And so your impression of river cruising might be that it's really what grandma and grandpa are doing when they don't have the rest of the extended family with them. So I'd like you to take a real good look at these top 3 photos. These are taken from brochures of some of the main river cruises, and of course the people that they put in the brochures are the kinds of people that they are trying to cater to. And you will notice that while they may be skewing a little bit older than the average ocean cruiser, these people are not elderly people by any stretch of the imagination. The fact is, a river cruise is a really active vacation. You're going to be getting off the boat every day and probably out for 2 or 3 hours at a time, sometimes more. Your included shore excursions, and the vast majority of river cruises do include your shore excursions, at least some basic options at every port. A lot of those are going to be walking based excursions. Maybe the bus takes you to another location, but then you're going to be walking, and that means you've got to be able to get off the boat. That means stairs and possibly an incline of some sort. You've got to be able to get on and off a bus, and then you've got to be able to walk through these really old cities, which means cobblestones in most cases. And this is not a vacation for people who are not at least fairly mobile. So you do want to make sure that you are fairly sure-footed and that mobility is not going to be a big issue for you. There are some river cruise lines that will tell you right out front they don't want children on board, but the majority of them just flat out don't address it at all, because if you want to bring children, most of them will have a minimum age of maybe 8 or 10 or 12, so they don't want the real small children. but they will let you bring children if you want to. Honestly, I don't think that I would bring the average child on a standard river vacation unless they're really used to traveling and they really eat up the whole history and shore excursion kind of experience, because they don't have any facilities on board for the kids and there is no sort of entertainment for them. That said, there are some exceptions to the rules. So look at the bottom row of photos. That first one, actually the first two of them, come from the brochure by Uniworld. Uniworld has a whole group of cruises that are specifically catering to the 20 and 30 something year old people. So they are not looking for mom and dad, and definitely not grandma and grandpa. They want the 20s and 30s, the people who are going to be out late at night. So they do have more music and entertainment on board. And then when they do their shore excursions, they're doing mixology classes and pasta making. And I'm not saying you don't get to do that kind of stuff on other cruise lines as well, but they are really trying hard to cater to that younger demographic. And then the third one from the left is Talk Bridges. You may be familiar with Talk Tours. Talk Bridges is the family arm of it, and they have a whole series of river cruises that is meant for the extended family. So everywhere from small children all the way through the parents and grandparents. And then finally on the far right side, we've got a shot from the Adventures by Disney brochure. They also do a series of river cruises. They actually lease their boats from AMA Waterways, and they bring on board adventure guides who do all kinds of onboard activities for those younger kids. So if you want to bring the family and have that multi-generational family experience, then Talk Bridges cruises and also Adventures by Disney river cruises are absolutely perfect, because they take what is otherwise geared toward an older demographic and they bring it more in line with what will work for families. So there's really something in river cruising for pretty much everybody. Okay, time to bring it into the home stretch here. I've been throwing around a lot of river cruise company names, and so here you see the logos of probably the biggest names in the business. I would never tell you that one of these is any better than any of the others. The fact is they all have strengths, and some of them are better suited to certain types of people than others. It just depends on what it is you are looking for in a river cruise experience. So that's why it's so important to work with somebody who does know these different brands and takes the time to talk to you and find out what you find interesting and what you are hoping to get out of your vacation. Because the bottom line is that the best river cruise line is the one that provides you with that experience. And that's definitely going to vary from person to person. Now, I'm sure you want to know a little bit about how much it's going to cost you to take this awesome vacation. So what I did was look at September of 2019, because so much of 2018 is already sold out, and I wanted to really try to compare apples to apples. So I picked 4 different river cruise companies and looked specifically at 7-night cruises on the Danube. And so as you can see, these are bottom line prices, including all port charges, taxes, and government fees for 2 people in a cabin, and they are all for French balcony cabins. So we're really comparing very similar types of cabins. And you'll see that the first 3 are pretty close in price as well. And then that last one, that's actually Crystal, and that would be considered really the kind of creme de la creme right now of river cruising, at least so far, and this is a 10-night cruise. They didn't have any 7-night cruises, but if you take that price and break it down into per night, it's really not all that much more expensive to have that really 6-star experience on a river cruise compared to the other ones. Now, what's included in your price is your cabin, your meals, that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and then some stuff in between as well. Your shore excursions in every port. Usually you will have a few different shore excursions to choose from that are complimentary, and then if you want to, you can upgrade them. Then you get the evening entertainment, of course, beer, wine, and sodas with lunch and dinner. And some of those cruise lines, like for instance, I believe Avalon Waterways includes sparkling wine, and Crystal is unlimited beer, wine, and sodas. So all day long, you're not limited to lunch and dinner. As far as what you're going to pay extra, you've got to get there first. So you're going to pay for your air and your ground transportation. The good news there is that quite often if you buy your air from the cruise line, they will throw in the ground transportation. Not always, but often. And then a lot of times their promotional offers include a heavy-duty discount on that air, sometimes even free air, which is phenomenal. I know we see from Viking River Cruises a lot, $3.99 for economy air round trip. That's amazing. And then you're going to pay your gratuities on top of that. Gratuities are always based on per person, per night of cruise. And in Europe, typically they would be charged in euros. So you're probably talking maybe 15 to 17 euros per person per night of cruise. So in the $200 to $250 range, and of course you can always tip more heavily if you think that the service warrants that. And finally, as I mentioned, you can upgrade your shore excursions and you can upgrade your beverage packages so that you can have mixed drinks and you can have alcoholic beverages or sodas outside your meal times as well. Now, cruise lines are well aware of the fact that everybody likes a deal, so nobody ever pays the brochure rate. There is always some kind of an option. Those rates that I just showed you are reflective of most of the current promotions, but there is always something going on. So I just jumped over to a few of the websites and grabbed some of the promotional offers that jumped out at me to give you an idea. Look at the pricing on some of these. If you can leave next month, you can do a 10-night Kiev to the Black Sea from $38.99 a person, and you get free air with that. Everyone knows that air to Europe and air to anywhere in the Baltic or the Far East can be seriously expensive. It can cost more than the cruise itself. So when they are throwing in free air or heavily reduced air, like that one right below it, actually the two right below it, $399 a person round trip for air to Europe. So the transportation aspect of it really isn't going to cost you all that much. And they still have $399 air left on almost all of their Europe departures for the rest of this year, $499 for next year. AMA Waterways, free air to Europe on almost everything they have left for this year. And then both they and Avalon Waterways are currently waiving single traveler fees. Now, if you know anybody who needs to travel single, you know that most cruise lines will charge them twice the price because their budgeting is all based on the idea of double occupancy, 2 people in that cabin. So when you've got a single traveler, they can really get hit hard. But these 2 lines are currently waiving those extra fees. So there's some really great opportunity there. In addition to that, we do belong to the Travel Leaders Network. So we constantly are getting updates on new contracted rates that we have on specific departures where they've basically taken out a bunch of space and done so at a discount. And then we can book people into that space and take advantage of those discounts or the onboard credits or whatever they happen to have on at the time. Now we want to sweeten the pot just a little bit more for you, so to give you that extra little incentive to get going and start really researching this and finding your next great adventure. If you are watching this presentation and you call us up and book a 7-night or longer river cruise that can depart anytime in the rest of 2018 or anytime in 2019, you book that with us before the end of this month, and on top of any other promotion that we can get for you, we're going to toss in $100 per person onboard credit, which you can spend any way you please. Now give that a little thought. If you book something that includes free air or one of those really inexpensive airfares, and we're giving you $200 for a couple, that pretty much offsets the cost of your gratuities. Really, you're just paying for the cost of the cruise itself, which is already a really good deal. So this is a really good bonus offer. All you need to do to get things rolling is contact us. If you're already working with an agent at My Travel Elf, you can email, call, text, or Facebook message that agent and just use whatever method works best for you. Or you are more than welcome to email me at beth@mytravelelf.com, or you can call us 239-352-4041. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/mytravelelf, or you can swing by our website at mytravelelf.com. Okay, so we've got a whole bunch of questions here. I can't even count all these questions, but I think because we're kind of going long here, I'm just going to pick 2 off the top because these are really good questions. And then, like I said at the beginning, if I don't answer your question, I'm going to send you an email so that you do get that answer from me tomorrow for sure. So the first question I want to address is, can you arrive earlier before your cruise or stay longer after your cruise? Okay, so I think what she means is, can you add a pre or post cruise stay to your trip? And the answer to that is absolutely. In most cases, you're flying a really long distance, so it's never a good idea to fly in the day that your trip starts anyway, because too many things could happen. So you always want to fly in the day before anyway. And honestly, if you're going all that distance, you might as well fly in 2 or 3 days early and really explore. And then if you've got the time, go ahead and stick around a few extra days on the end too. So that is absolutely something that you can do. And if it is not something available from the cruise line that you choose, or you want to do something different from what they offer, we can absolutely help you with that anytime. And then the other question that I thought was really good is, can you smoke on board? Yes, you can smoke on board. You should not do that. It's not good for your health. But if you really have to smoke on board, yes, you can. But on the upper deck, on the outside deck, all the way at the back, they have these, it's hard to describe, kind of like tent-like things, these coverings that protect you from rain and snow and whatever else, inclement weather. So you can go up there and sit toward the back so that the smoke doesn't bother anybody else, and you are free to smoke up there. Okay, and there's one other question. I know I said 2, we're going to do 3. What language does the crew speak? Yeah, they speak English, so you're good. I can't promise you an accent-free English, but they do speak English, and for the most part, they're very, very understandable, so no language barrier there. Okay, so we want to wrap this up, and again, thank you all so much for joining me today, and I promised you some prizes here. So the first one that we have is this really pretty scarf from Ama Waterways. They leave you lots of presents on your bed, kind of surprise presents. And one of the things that Ama Waterways is famous for are these beautiful scarves. And so this is mine. You don't have to take this one. It's going to be a pretty new one, and it's supposed to be here at the end of the week, so we will send this out to the winner. So let me see who is here. We've got this cool randomizer thing, and okay, so attendee number 24, you are the winner, and that is Pamela S. Pamela S. from Olaf, Kansas. So Pamela, congratulations. You have a scarf coming. You're going to love it. And then the second drawing that we have here is a cookbook from Viking River Cruises, and it's a really good one. It has a bunch of their recipes in it, and hopefully the winner cooks, because you're gonna love this. And so let's do our little randomizer thing here. Again, attendee number 63, you are the winner. And that is Michael T. from Dallas, Texas. So Michael, congratulations. We will get this out in the mail to you tomorrow. So I want to thank you all again so much for attending. You will get the recording of this, and please feel free to share it. And don't forget that if you want to take advantage of that promotional offer of $100 onboard credit per person for any 2018 or 2019 river cruise that you book through us, you need to do that by the end of this month, June 2018, this month. So make sure you get on that, call us, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks.